and see if perhaps some of the points that I want to make are really more obvious than you might first imagine. We must give a certain background to this discussion because actually most of our concepts of demonism, black magic, witchcraft, and diabolism belong to long traditional concepts and beliefs which have endured in our way of life over thousands of years. First of all, I think we should make one rather important differentiation. Most of the demons of antiquity were comparatively respectable creatures. The ancients believed that there were in nature spirits both good and bad. Good spirits they called gods, or in nature worship, kami, or elemental beings. Evil spirits they regarded as more spiteful and malicious by their natural intention. And these two orders of invisibles were used to explain a variety of natural phenomena. When things went well with man, he was grateful to his gods. And when things went badly, he propitiated his devils. For he assumed at an early time, and apparently quite sensibly, that God and the subordinate deities that attended the Supreme Being could not be the cause of evil. Yet as a mortal physical creature, man experienced certain disasters which he called evil. He found himself plagued with circumstances destructive to his happiness, his health, and even his life. He had to explain how it was that a good God ruling over a good world could produce destructive situations. Badly, he propitiated his devils. For he assumed at an early time, and apparently quite sensibly, that God and the subordinate deities that attended the Supreme Being could not be the cause of evil. Yet as a mortal physical creature, man experienced certain disasters which he called evil. He found himself plagued with circumstances destructive to his happiness, his health, and even his life. He had to explain how it was that a good God ruling over a good world could produce destructive situations. To meet this need, orders of beings subordinate to deities, but still by nature malicious, were conjured into reality. Perhaps man copied this concept in turn from his own associates in this world. He discovered what we all find, that some of our associates are nice people and some prove treacherous or destructive. Some of our friends are faithful and others faithless. It appears that certain phases or aspects of our way of life are protective and others are destructive. And today we explain these differences on moral or ethical or cultural or legal grounds, but still we are faced by these two parallel lines of occurrences, one helpful and the other hurtful. Going back over the history of primitive demonism, we note that nearly all of the so-called destructive forces were regarded as entities in themselves. They were sprites, or mysterious little beings of nature capricious and malicious. But they operated almost completely according to their own natures. They afflicted or burdened people because apparently they enjoyed doing these things. Irish folklore is full of mischievous beings who seem to like to play pranks on innocent mortals. Most of these older demons, therefore, were an order of life, just in the same way that the various Greek divinities originated in some region of their own, had their own way of life, and only occasionally came into contact with mankind. This contact could also often be altered. Malicious spirits could be made at least temporarily friendly by offerings and by various gifts and by propitiations, as they were called. It did not seem to occur to these older peoples that these spirits were other than what they seemed to be, some kind of a hierarchy of entities, inhabiting their own worlds and coming in contact with man only on very rare occasions. The second type of spirit that was regarded as hurtful or harmful was the individual who died with great evil or great hate in his heart. If we wronged someone terribly and he died, we conceived that he might haunt us. Perhaps this haunting was mostly the voice of our own conscience. We may have realized that this person went out of this world injured by us, and that perhaps had he a survival after death, he might resent this injury and continue to avenge it from the other world as he might have liked to do it from here. So we have this kind of spirit being.
Holy
these
shit,
souls of the unhappy dead. This more or less exhausted the Greek concept. The Greeks were never particularly devoted to demonology. They kind of liked life, they enjoyed nature. Their religion was a rather buoyant, festive kind. They would much rather live in a world filled with good spirits than with evil ones. Our word demon, however, has been derived from the Greek. But in the Greek form, daemon, it did not signify an evil being at all. It simply represented a creature from another dimension who might have some contact with earthly affairs. Socrates had a demon, according to his own records. And this was a godlike creature who warned him of impending evil and harm and protected him on many occasions through life. So the Greek concept of the daemon was very little different from their concept of the demigod, except perhaps that the daemon was a little more available, was present upon requirement more definitely and more consistently. We have practically no records among the Greeks, for instance, that they ever tried to use one of their spirits to harm any other person. These spirits were protectors and guardians and friends. But there were orders of spirits that were by nature inclined to be malicious or meddlesome, but the Greeks generally handled those rather successfully by putting out a little bowl of food or offering a prayer or making some little promise that they would do a favor for the spirit if the spirit would be kindly to them. It was rather a childish state of affairs,
Right.
and never got very much beyond that point. Among Oriental nations, there is an elaborate study of demonism of all kinds. But I rather suspect that we have been somewhat over-influenced by missionary reports. I think the demonism of Asia was very much like that of Greece. I know that today, in Asiatic countries, there is very little fear of evil spirits, even where they're believed in. They are not regarded as being particularly dangerous. Japan has its little oni, its little goblins, but if you want to get goblins out of the house for the year, all you have to do is throw some beans at them at the Setsubun festival and they depart for the rest of the year. They're really not very tenacious or especially difficult. I saw a book of Japanese paintings not long ago called Recreations of Hell. It was a delightful little thing which would indicate that the oni or spirits were more or less unionized or something of that nature, and that in their spare time they went fishing, had picnics, and gathered in some quiet bamboo grove and drank sake together. This seemed to be about their principal activity. Now, in almost all countries where Buddhism has been introduced, we have the same consistent story, namely that the Buddhist teachers immediately converted the demons. Demons just didn't have a chance where Buddhist missionaries went out. Even in Tibet, when Padmasambhava converted the country, he converted all of the evil spirits, and they all became good Buddhists, and they became servants of righteousness ever after. The only function that was left to them was the right to just groan and grumble a little bit and perform just a few little examples of their powers in order to sort of frighten people back on the straight and narrow road again. They became helpers whose only remaining function was to warn people against being bad. Now, this situation also seems to follow in many other parts of the world. China is supposed to have had more demons than all the firecrackers in Asia could frighten away. But again, these demons did not seem to be particularly ferocious. We have many representations in painting and carving of the most horrible scenes of demons punishing lost souls. But no one really seemed to pay much attention to it. And there's no indication that it improved the virtue of the people to any appreciable degree. These ideas just didn't sink in. The native attitude just was not appropriate to it. The general way of life was essentially, well, you can't say happy exactly, because many of these people were miserably underprivileged. At least we may say that the general temper was optimistic. People wanted to believe that good things would happen not only in this world, but the world to come. And they also had a deep conviction that whatever their religion was, that their prayers and their mantrams and their various teachings would ensure them against being very deeply plagued by any sinister force. In none of these older countries do we find a kind of demonism in which the demon can stand against God. There is no possibility of rebellion on this level. The demon is a nuisance, principally, represented as perhaps having some minor right to plague unfortunate humans, but even the demon himself rather inclined to repent of his evil ways and depart with very slight encouragement.
Holy shit.
Actually, I think the Chinese, most of these people, were more afraid of ghosts
trying to heal
than they were of
I
demons.
don't want him to heal right now.
Our philosophy in the West, however, seems to have from the beginning developed a rather neurotic attitude on this subject. In both the Old and New Testament, demonology seems to play a very real and significant part. And then as we went along through time, particularly in the Dark Ages, demons became very terrible sources of negative belief. They plagued everybody. The early Christian missionaries enlarged the population of the infernal region by populating it with all the pagans and all their divinities. This made it a rather congested area. Furthermore, the early church developed some very aggressive attitudes about how easy it was for a human being to lose his soul. He hardly had to do anything except miss one mass and he was in trouble. Evil was ever nigh unto him, as St. Paul tells us.
Holy shit.
And he meant it. And he meant it very literally. And because of this, we see in Western civilization, all the way from the Mediterranean to Ireland, and all the way from the southern tip of Sicily to the most Nordic lands, this very great fear, this almost neurotic pressure in which the individual lived in an almost constant terror of some weird and terrible force. Here again, however, most of the pattern was firmly set upon what might be called demonism in its classical sense. The demon punished sin. The demons didn't bother good people. They had no reason to. But they had a strange and immediate power over sinners. It would almost seem as though deity had assigned them the right to do this. Whenever a person broke the good rules, he was subject to the punishments and afflictions and burdens
See how this goes.
that the demons would administer as the agents of divine wrath or punishment. The church, however, had its ups and downs on the subject of demonism. Altogether, I think we can say that the general trend of early Christianity was against demonism. It existed very strongly in local areas. It raised considerable trouble and confusion from time to time. But every once in a while,
Damn, what the hell did I get hit by?
with either common sense or a clearer vision of things would always step in and clear the situation for a while. I think that we can say that the demonism, as it was popularly practiced even in Europe, was never really according to the church canons. It was simply something that local peoples, especially the ignorant, the peasants, and the
teammates in the back,
fearful, the neurotic, the psychotic, developed, and which the clergy in turn tried to exorcise with holy water and church candles. The attitude was periodically to clear this atmosphere and to not allow the concept of demonism to build too strongly in the early church history. Wherever it did build, wherever we had waves of this, we had also waves of incredible cruelty. We had horrible disasters, largely the result of morbid imagination. Now, every nation, every people of the world has produced neurotics of some kind. They're an inevitable part of life. Certainly they are more abundant where the pressures of life have a tendency to become abnormal. But there's always someone to whom healthy, natural, optimistic matters have no meaning. There are always people who live and brood and feel and fear and worry and hate and fuss and maintain jealous, negative attitudes toward each other. Such persons have always existed everywhere in the history of our race. So, there have always been psychotics. And today the psychotic presents very much the same problem that he did 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. The difference now is that he is operating against a background that is not nearly as credulous as it was in the early times. When a psychotic today sees horrible and destructive visions, this doesn't become the basis of another witchcraft outbreak. It simply now means that this person is judged to be mentally ill. A few hundred years ago, he was not so judged.
Damn.
He could be taken to the steps of the church and exorcised. If he did not recover, he might be subject to torture. If he still did not mend his ways or repent his claims or pretensions, he might well be burned at the stake. This situation does not hold today because we simply have a different attitude toward it. But back 1,500 years ago, when Europe was comparatively illiterate, when almost nothing was known of mental medicine, the hysterical person, the unbalanced individual, the psychotic, was a subject of the greatest fear. In different areas, of course, this also differed. Among the Greeks, an insane person was said to be under the protection of the gods and was therefore never injured or bothered in any way. But in Europe during the Dark Ages, any person mentally unbalanced was assumed to be possessed of an evil spirit. Something had to be done to get this evil spirit out. And as we know, in most psychotic cases, there is a distinct lowering of the ethical moral threshold, the individual becoming abusive and profane and even animalistic. As a result of mental sickness, it is easy to understand why older nations felt that this person had suddenly become inhabited by some very low and malevolent being. We don't want to labor this phase of the matter too much, but we do know that in the subconscious of our people, the subconscious of the race, all these old beliefs still lurk. We are, even now, unless we are completely materialistic in our attitudes, a little inclined to wonder, to question, to suspect that perhaps some of these old beliefs had validity. Perhaps somewhere around there is something that does have a forked tail and horns that might cause embarrassment at some moment. This belief, because it has come down to us, and because it has survived in many primitive areas of society, even today, requires or suggests considerable thought. First of all, we know that in modern society, demonism as it was practiced or held to be true in ancient times is now almost totally reserved to so-called backward peoples. It is still largely found in isolated, underprivileged areas. It is found among people who are comparatively illiterate, whose advantages in life have been few, who have been strongly introverted into patterns in which their tribe or their family or their community has been spirit-ridden and ghost-ridden for ages. It does not appear too often in what might be termed a level of higher mental attainment. It is limited to primitive areas which should give us some idea as to the real state of the matter. Now, in more modern times, during what has been called the Middle Ages, there appeared another problem that really does not stem from real, honest, good old-fashioned constructive demonism. It is a different brand of this belief, and it has been called diabolism. And diabolism, or black magic, as it has gradually come to be known, indicates or holds the concept that of two things. First, that evil spirits naturally existing can be controlled or brought into the service of a magician, as in the case of Faust, and that this evil spirit will do the bidding of his master for a certain length of time, sign a pact with him, perhaps sign it in blood. In the European museums and libraries, there are a number of these original pacts neatly signed in blood. These pacts bound an evil spirit to man for a time. Usually the pact ended by the evil spirit receiving in payment the soul of the magician. This is the classical pattern and is found in many old works on demonology. But during the duration of the pact, this demon was forced to serve his master, to do anything that his master wanted him to do. Now, in a great many of these old books, we find a very interesting line of thought, which seems to indicate that the demonism actually did arise from older beliefs. For we learn that these demons that were bound by pacts really had no interest in hurting anybody. They were not out trying to make the magician do evil things. Mephisto did not have the slightest interest in advancing the whims of Dr. Faust. Mephisto lived in an entirely different kind of world of his own. As the demon, he represented a debonair personality, worldly wise, sophisticated, and attained in all things. To him, Faust was no one but a child, an infantile ignoramus, perfectly willing to sell his own soul for a few years of glory and a little wealth or the fulfillment of his own desires. And as Mephisto himself tells us, he hasn't the slightest interest in Faust's desires. But because of the pact, he is his servant for the duration of the bargain and must do as he is told. In fact, in a few instances, Mephisto actually intercedes and strongly recommends that Faust not do some of these evil things, which are senseless, meaningless, and purposeless. So in the demonology, it wasn't a case of a demon taking great joy in injuring people. It was a bored demon who had no interest in humanity, who didn't care whether humans lived or died, because he was no part of them. They were not his region, they were not his world. But he had made a bargain, he had signed a contract, he was, so to say, an apprentice to the sorcerer for a while. So he did what he was told and waited patiently until he could inflict final punishment upon the sorcerer himself. This type of diabolism, again, doesn't quite meet the thinking of most people of today. Because here, and this was the typical demonism of the crossroad, where the magic circle was drawn, where the witches of Macbeth brewed their cauldrons, all of this type of medieval tying of spirits, the binding of the powers of nature to the whims of a human being. All of these were based upon a certain power process. There were secret words, there were secret conjurations, magic circles and terms, rites to be performed. And if the magician was able to perform these correctly, he could command the spirit. And if he could command the spirit, then the spirit had to obey him. And the spirit felt really, as several of the old accounts say. One or two of the spirits do, like Asmodeus in one of the early books, says to the conjurer who has called him out of the misty deep for some nefarious undertaking, "Why have you disturbed me? I have no reason to be here. I don't care anything about you. I don't want to hurt anybody. Why have you bothered me? Why have you said these words of power that now force me to obey you? Because you have the magic talismans, the magic symbols. Why have you done this to me? I don't dislike you. I haven't done anything to you. Why do you insist on binding me to some common human purpose of your own?" This was the rather nonchalant idea. It seems to have carried through from the Greek, in which these spirits were simply part of the citizenry of an invisible empire, and really would never bother anybody if humans left them alone. Now the next phase of the situation takes on a little different coloring. As a result of the binding of spirits by these conjurations and these magical formulas, it came to be believed that human beings could hurt each other. This was a very late development in the idea of demonology, that human beings should want to use evil forces to afflict each other. This was not part of the original concept at all. Ghosts might haunt those who hurt them in life, but not innocent people. And in most countries, the ghost is a kind of a wavering symbol floating in the atmosphere in graveyards at night or something, but not inclined to do anything more than be there, although its presence might frighten some superstitious person out of his wits. But it was not really any particular idea. The concept that either evil wanted to conquer good or could conquer good came late. The idea that man might want to use evil, some kind of an invisible or magical evil, to hurt other people. This was simply not part of primitive ethics in the majority of instances. It arises occasionally, but is certainly of the exception rather than of the rule. But once we began to believe in witchcraft, once we believed that human beings could make pacts with demons, or could develop within themselves some evil force, could pervert their own natures, and begin to burden us with their perversions, like the witches of Europe riding on their broomsticks to the Sabbath on the Brocken, that human beings themselves voluntarily and of their own inner conviction chose to become evil, chose to hurt or destroy other people, and sought in long and difficult processes to discover means by means of which they could bewitch or haunt, or in some way from a distance plague or hurt normal, innocent folks. Antiquity had very little room for this concept because it simply did not believe it. It believed that the so-called spirits could exist. It believed that evil people could do evil deeds, but it simply did not develop any strong concept of black magic as we think of it today. It was outside of the grand concept of life which these people held, and they would not permit something to be believed that did not fit into the great theory of the kind of world they lived in. And with the exception of very primitive people, there was no general group in society that believed that the world was created for the purpose of perpetuating evil. or that evil had any chance of conquering good. In the long, difficult picture of things, even in the Mazdian faith, evil had no real power to ultimately achieve victory over good. Good was real, good was deep and great. Evil was passing, evil was linked so closely to the infirmities of men that it became more and more obvious that most of the evil that we have attributed to demons really arises in the nature of man himself. That we are the creatures who seem to possess the strange power of being malignant in some way, malicious, malevolent in our conduct towards other people. So in the most part, we come down to comparatively modern times, bringing with us all the grimoires of old, the ancient books of magic and spirits, the pentacles and talismans of Agrippa, the old book of the keys of Solomon the king. We have all these beliefs that have been shadowed down through time, books that have to do with the creation of an empire of sorcery, a sorcery in which all of the common good of life is threatened and the universe is placed at the disposal of the sorcerer. If he can...
Yeah, I'll be right back. Alright, here we go. My bad. Let's get it. Finish the rest of this shit. Well, maybe most of it. I don't know how much more I'm gonna listen
can
to.
become wise enough, if he can become strong enough, if he can become skillful enough, there seems to be no limit to what he can do to ordinary, well-intentioned, God-fearing people. This concept has lingered on, however, in an extraordinary way. And unless we begin to think it through somewhere, we have to face it more frequently than perhaps we like to really imagine. Even in our most sober moments, we are afraid that somewhere around us, somewhere in space, are powers of evil. That these powers of evil operating upon us from the invisible or coming into focus here through persons of evil nature, that these forces can do us great harm. We have also come gradually to lack the marvelous solutions that ancient people had. Most of the time now, the solutions which took care of everything 500 years ago just do not seem to be adequate anymore.
Right.
We are too smart to believe the solutions, but we are not smart enough not to believe the original idea. In other words, we are foolish enough to believe in these evil principles, but not wise enough or not gullible enough to believe in the simple remedies that always took care of them satisfactorily up to recent times. in those long periods in which we were either blessed or cursed by the lack of psychiatrists, these things more or less took care of themselves. Every community had its own local psychiatrist in the form of an elderly widow or someone of that nature, preferably the seventh daughter of a seventh daughter born with a veil. If we could find her, everything would work out. But how did it work out? Just as it works out in the reservations of Indians down in our New Mexican and Arizona areas today. If you think there's an evil spirit that is trying to do you a little harm, you have to find two stones of a certain shape and size, tie a piece of wool around the stones, and carry them in a little pouch in your pocket or on your body. If you have made this little talisman correctly, you have nothing more to worry about. You're in the clear as far as affliction of that nature is concerned. If you're bewitched, all you have to do is wear your coat inside out for a couple of days and it's taken care of. These things certainly cause no more trouble. If it's too bad and you just can't handle it yourself, you go to a bruja, which is another witch, and you pay a very reasonable sum for the second witch to bewitch the first one, and then you go home and go on with your affairs as always. There was always such nice, easy ways out. In the medieval period, all you had to do was confess, do a penance, and be sprinkled on with a little holy water, and the situation was reasonably well in hand. We still have the fears and the worries, but we've lost confidence in the remedy, and that is a rather sad state of affairs, because we now have no way of getting ourselves out of these attitudes. Once we get into them, it becomes a deep and involved and troublesome process. We just are a little less optimistic about how to cure our own infirmities. Perhaps too much dependence on the professional level of things. The point to be very definitely made is this, that as time went on and down into the 20th century, we have a kind of black magic that has drifted along, that has taken on, in some instances, a rather respectable and sophisticated look. The old sorcerer with his pointed cap and long black robe covered with stars has vanished. We have now what might almost be termed the mental magician. He has taken the place of all these other things. But we do still believe that people exist who want to hurt us. We also believe that there are certain persons who can hurt us. And whether this hurting is done by means of chaining a demon, or whether it is done by the natural orneriness of the magician himself, makes very little difference to the sufferer. He actually believes that he is in constant psychic or spiritual danger due to the malicious intent of someone else. Now, that this should be a belief is quite understandable. Our so-called level or veneer of sophistication is pretty thin, and beneath the surface of our so-called mental advancements and attainments, there is still very much of the primitive and very much of the frightened. We all live very largely influenced by fear. And fear is a mysterious thing and is most deadly and most dangerous when the object of that fear is most difficult to isolate or distinguish. Blind fear is the most terrible thing of all, because there's no way you can open your eyes for it. It is simply there as a terrible compulsion to terror within yourself. And nothing that man has ever developed in the form of sophistications apparently can touch this basic atavistic anxiety which is within him. So we are all born with it. We all have to struggle with it. And we all have to solve it much as we solve every other problem in life. Mostly by common sense. Also by building positive beliefs or convictions that are larger than the negative ones. If we would sit down quietly by ourselves, perhaps, and think some of these things through, we would be forced to make decisions. But by the time we are thoroughly frightened, we are in no mood to make decisions. The immediate terror is greater than any judgment that we can be expected to focus on the situation. So the same problem that answers ignorance in every other form must be applicable to this form. The only answer lies in the individual developing within himself positive resources of understanding and insight that simply will not permit him to take on negative and essentially destructive attitudes. And whenever in the history of civilization men have followed strongly after constructive beliefs, demonism has faded out. Whenever these beliefs were themselves compromised and men fell back again upon their terrors, demonism increased again. Therefore, we are reasonably certain that wherever the individual does develop inner resources, he is able to protect himself far better from blind fears. I think that in this particular problem, of course, philosophies such as the Platonic philosophy of Greece and the Buddhistic philosophy of India are of the greatest practical help. Because the individual, if he has some kind of a basic philosophy upon which he can lean, will have a tendency not to fall so quickly into a completely chaotic and unphilosophic point of view. Most students, for instance, of mysticism, metaphysics, and esoteric sciences and arts in the United States now in this century believe essentially in a universe that is ruled over by proper, orderly laws. Most mystics and most of those persons who by nature and temperament might possibly come under the pressure of too much belief in invisible forces in life. Most of these people claim sincerely that they believe in a good God. They claim one of two things: either that God is good, or if they're rank materialists, that God does not exist. And if God does not exist, and there is no purpose to the universe, then we have no reason to suppose that evil exists either, because if there is any enduring principle, there is no doubt from all of our observation and reflection for thousands of years that this principle is essentially good. So if we believe, for example, as in Platonism and Buddhism, that this universe is the product of a divine mind, that this divine mind of itself is inevitably and eternally good, and by the very nature of itself produces out of its own nature only good. If this universe, therefore, is a product of divine consciousness and is ruled over by just laws, wherein all the heaven and earth of justice is their place for psychic plaguing of one person by another, something has to be wrong in the picture somewhere. If a person is subjected to psychic malpractice, which he hasn't earned, which he doesn't deserve, and for which he has no way of protecting himself reasonably, and he must endure this because some other person wishes to take advantage of him, and the one person is not punished for his evil, and the victim is not protected against this evil, what happens to the concept of universal law and order? Well, the answer of the afflicted person usually is that the universe of law and order is a long way off, somewhere in space, and the difficulty of the moment is right here.
Right.
And this is considered to be irrefutable. But the more we think about it, the more we realize there has to be something wrong with the picture. We have to realize that if it were true that by means of the faculties that we are normally endowed with, we are capable of exercising extraordinary malicious influence over other minds, if it is possible
Right.
for a mind, for good or for ill, to control the life or destiny of another human being, simply because this mind is stronger and the other mind is weaker, and the weaker mind has no defense whatever, we would be in a situation in which the whole world could very well become involved in what might be termed psychic warfare. We would have no out for this situation. In the 1940s, there were probably 300 or 400 million minds, strong minds, many of them, minds of persons horribly hurt and injured, millions of persons going out like the haunting ghosts of antiquity, with all his hatred headed straight at one man, Adolf Hitler. And yet it took the combined armies of the Western powers to finally bring this man to his end in a bunker in Berlin. He was under the most terrible mental pressure imaginable. I personally know individuals who claim to be well up in magic, who were working night and day to destroy him by magical means.
Right.
All he did was take on some more territory and take another nation over. Hundreds of millions of minds with just cause for the greatest hatred. Didn't get very far with him. What finally got him was himself. The same might be true of Mussolini. The same was certainly true of Joseph Stalin. The probabilities are that almost as great an amount of hatred was turned against Wilhelm Hohenzollern II, who passed a pleasant and quiet old age in Holland. Why? If one individual can, by means of mental suggestion, destroy my life or your life, how is it that they can never seem to get the fellow that needs trouble the most? They don't get him. He keeps right on going. And the reason why he almost certainly keeps on going is because he doesn't believe that these other people can do it. He is so sure of himself. Hohenzollern with his me and Gott. Hitler, the man of destiny. Napoleon, the man of destiny. It was their own arrogance, their own conceit, their own stubborn unwillingness to listen to anyone else that finally destroyed them. But the sorrow, the pain, the agony of minds did not do it. The prayers lifted up against these tyrants did not seem to operate very effectively. And yet we like to assume that these same forces that cannot touch these men, even when augmented several millions of times by concerted thinking, that one lonely character of uncertain mind can destroy us. Actually, we have to re-evaluate this entire situation. And it is a little difficult to do because there are things we so desperately want to believe. And there is nothing that we want to believe more than that which we see. that which we hear, and that which occurs so directly and intimately to us that there seems to be no possible way of evading or avoiding the situation. What we see that happens seems so factual.
Give me 1
that
second.
we
real
cannot
quick.
escape
Sheesh.
it.
He going in though, low key.
Now, in Buddhist philosophy, we have these repentant onis, miscellaneous secondary demons, who more or less finally went to the robe and became good Buddhists themselves.
Not by themselves.
And what do we have as the answer to the rest of the problem in Buddhism? There is one thing, and that is perhaps the most important key to all. There is one legitimate cause for the individual to be in trouble, and that is karma. Now, karma is not a monster. It is a good law, absolutely necessary to us. But like the Mio of China and Japan, the ferocious-faced deities were always smiling in a kind of a wicked, sardonic way, as much as to say, I shall have you for breakfast. These Mio, or Fudo Mio, represent karma. They represent the inevitable power of retribution. And to the Eastern way of thinking, karma is this thing which is itself a divine good appearing to us in a horrible and destructive and unfortunate and unpopular appearance. In both Platonism and Buddhism, an individual has to be in need of some type of punishment, or it doesn't come to him. He has to experience that which he has caused. Let us say, for example, that back somewhere in the Middle Ages, a second or third-rate sorcerer appeared who really believed perhaps that he could use these evil forces for his own advantage. Perhaps he didn't use them really for his own advantage. Perhaps he didn't even know whether he did or not. All he knew was that when he prayed that a person would die, that person would sicken and die. And it was obvious, therefore, that his prayers had done it. We know today that this does not necessarily constitute the answer, but as far as our medieval sorcerer is concerned, he may have believed it. So we might assume that all the way down through time, there have been individuals who have sold their souls for wealth, for power, for the fulfillment of their ambitions, and for the fulfillment of their appetites. These individuals have conspired against the public good. They have cheated and stolen and bribed. They have done all kinds of unpleasant things. Perhaps when they did them, they thought it was all right to do them. We've got the whole generation of people now making the most stupid possible mistakes with a very good attitude on the whole thing. I've talked to people recently who have admitted frankly that they see no reason why they should not get the last dollar they can, no matter who they take it from. The problem is now you're respectable if you get the dollar. How is no longer a problem or a question. So people compromised their principles down through time. Some did it in the name of religion, some did it in the name of power, some did it in the name of business, some did it in the name of the learned professions. But they exploited. They took unfair advantage. They used knowledge and skill to hurt with. And this essentially is black magic. They used the intelligence which they had to enslave other people instead of to free them. They used their scientific skill to make objects and weapons of destruction. And we're producing a lot of them right now. But they took the God-given faculties that man has and have used these faculties to terrorize other people, to destroy the securities of living, and to leave this world perhaps a barren sphere in space if someone doesn't come along and straighten out the problem and the tangle. Well, these people, unfortunately, are subject to a law that they don't know anything about, most of them, and that is the law of cause and effect. These individuals have set up compensations. They have set up compensations not merely because they were ignorant, because nature takes ignorance into consideration. They are setting up compensations because they know they are wrong, and yet they prefer to do it that way. Every time we get mad at someone, we know we are wrong, but we keep on doing it. And after a while, we have a thrombosis, which is the way nature catches up with us.
Damn, they must have had a error in the audio or something when they remastered. Didn't notice something.
We do what we want to, the world is wonderful. But a thrombosis is sent by the devil.
That's on me.
We haven't realized that in many instances, the devil, which is merely a form of the deity Thudo or Yama or Mara in India, is the luring flame-encircled image of karma. The natural ills that we have done coming back to us. But we remember the words of Mephisto in Faust, when Faust asks the demon who he is. And Mephisto answers, the spirit of negation, part of the power that still works for good while ever scheming ill. This is karma. In other words, the demon is simply the long way toward the good, the roundabout way through the mistakes that man himself makes. So there is one way in which things can go wrong with us that we cannot explain. Paracelsus, who probably is accredited with knowing more about demons than any other medieval thinker, tells us that there are no miraculous circumstances in life, that a miracle is only the effect, the cause of which is unknown, but that cause must be equal to the effect that it produces. So what we term psychic persecution today is an effect. There has to be a cause for it. And where are we going to find the cause? Where in the universe can we find a just cause that something unfortunate should happen to us. The only possible answer is that the just cause has to be ourselves. There has to be a lesson which we must accept. There has to be unfinished business. When this moves in upon us, we can join the Hindus and the Romans and the medieval Christians and the Goths and the Celts in assuming that an evil spirit is bringing it in a pack on its back. But this evil spirit, so-called, is nothing but the retributional aspect of universal law. A good spirit, a saintly spirit, is the spirit of the reward for good. The evil spirit is the spirit. A good spirit, a saintly spirit, is the spirit of the reward for good. The evil spirit is the spirit of the punishment for ill. So nearly all of the infirmities which we would like to shift onto the shoulders of either some actually well-intentioned little demon of one kind or another, or upon some person with malicious intention to us. We have to finally face the fact that in the universe, law and order must be maintained. Now, this does not mean for a moment that another person may not try to hurt us. Let us clearly realize that there are a great many parlor sorcerers, even in this century. There are people who would love to hurt us, perhaps. Not many, fortunately, but some. There are certainly individuals who, disbelieving our principles, are praying to God to punish us. Perhaps they have entirely misunderstood and misjudged us, but we are not receiving any constructive mental influences from them. They believe the worst, and because they believe the worst, they keep on sending to us any negative or perverse thought that might be available. Yet have we any defense against this? How are we going to defend ourselves against persons we don't know, perhaps, certainly whose location we could not find, whom we cannot take into court and charge them with some malicious mischief? Persons who perhaps we have gradually come to fear with such an intensive terror that it is destroying our own rest and sleep. And if we were able to pick up the telephone and say to these persons, "Are you trying to make life miserable for me?" quite possible the individual would answer, "Yes. I'm doing all I can to make life miserable for you." So here it is. I'm miserable. Somebody else admits they're trying to make me miserable. The circumstantial evidence would almost stand in court. Yet it doesn't have to be true even when it goes that far, because we are still faced with this constant problem. How are we going to assume any kind of a just existence if another person can make life miserable for us because they want to, and not because there is any justice in it? I think we have to realize that man has been equipped by life with everything necessary to protect him on this dangerous journey which we call existence. Just as surely as he has gradually developed means for the protection of his outer body, as he has developed all that is required to preserve himself as far as possible against almost any creature except his own kind,
right,
we realize that man is psychically well equipped to defend himself. He is psychically set with a keynote of vibration. No two human beings have the same keynote. The discovery of this keynote by any other person is an extremely remote possibility. And even assuming that it could possibly be done, there still remains the problem of the ethical universe in which we live. From what we can learn from the older philosophical systems, man is capsulated or enclosed in a magnetic field. This field, in turn, is surrounded or held by a mysterious thing called the auric egg. The walls of this egg are stronger than steel, but completely invisible. Against this field, any bacterial organism, anything of this nature, has almost no chance whatever of making any inroad upon man. In fact, nearly always, any individual who suffers from a bacterial or germ infection or contagion does so because primarily the germs are already on the inside of this situation. We are carrying all these in our own bodies, and they are coming out into victorious manifestation because of mistakes that we make in the maintenance of our own economy. If we allow ourselves physically to run down, the germs take over. If we build up, the germs retire. Nature has provided us with a most extraordinary defense mechanism. And this mysterious mechanism extends also into our psychic lives. If we can assume an honest person owing no psychic debt to anyone, living a constructive life, and free from any immediate pressures of karma, if we assume this person and assume that they are a well-integrated individual, I think we can at the same time assume the so-called malicious psychic persecution is impossible for that person to suffer. Something has to happen to break down the natural defenses of the individual. And these breakdowns are the real cause of the whole problem. Somebody who wants to use some mysterious ability to injure us can turn that ability in our direction. But if we are not a proper receiving station, it goes right back to the original sender and causes more trouble than it can ever cause us. Because always the sorcerer finally becomes the victim of his own sorcery. He is setting up negative karma in himself, and this karma will destroy him more rapidly than a bullet. So no matter what he wants to do to somebody else, all he can do is destroy himself. The answer as far as this affects us lies in a number of secondary situations which seemingly have a strong bearing on this matter. One of these secondary situations that I'd like to particularly mention is that their affects us lies in a number. Nature has provided us with a most extraordinary defense mechanism. And this mysterious mechanism extends also into our psychic lives. If we can assume an honest person owing no psychic debt to anyone, living a constructive life, and free from any immediate pressures of karma, if we assume this person and assume that they are a well-integrated individual, I think we can at the same time assume the so-called malicious psychic persecution is impossible for that person to suffer. Something has to happen to break down the natural defenses of the individual. And these breakdowns are the real cause of the whole problem. Somebody who wants to use some mysterious ability to injure us can turn that ability in our direction. But if we are not a proper receiving station, it goes right back to the original sender and causes more trouble than it can ever cause us. Because always the sorcerer finally becomes the victim of his own sorcery. He is setting up negative karma in himself, and this karma will destroy him more rapidly than a bullet. So no matter what he wants to do to somebody else, all he can do is destroy himself. The answer as far as this affects us lies in a number of secondary situations which seemingly have a strong bearing on this matter. One of these secondary situations that I'd like to particularly mention is that there seems to be a proven and demonstrable fact of thought transference. In other words, we are unable to disprove and have no desire to disprove that the thought of one person can be communicated to another. I think we will find as time goes on that this power will increase with man, and that in time it is very possible that the principal form of communication will be by thought transference. Thought transference, however, is only another step beyond radio, television, and the telephone. It began with the telegraph and perhaps smoke signals long, long ago. But when the telephone was invented, we did not have a wave of psychic persecution nor an epidemic of sorcery. We have not had it with television. We've had several forms of negative thinking, but we haven't had any evidence that the fact that I can pick up a telephone and talk to you is any indication that I can hurt you. At least I can always assume that if you don't like what I have to say, you can hang up the phone. Also, there is no reason for you to do anything that I say, regardless of what I say. I can look at you and say I am the ghost of the pharaoh Ramesses the Great, and I'm paying 10 cents to send this phone call directly from Cairo, and I expect you to do what I tell you to. And in the majority of cases, the receiver will hang up. There is no reason, there is nothing to indicate that thought transference is a legitimate basis of mental persecution. The fact that a thought can get through no more means that the person who receives that thought is vulnerable to some negative force than it would be if he picked up the telephone. Thought transference, it is true, does come into us, perhaps in a rather mysterious way. Sometimes it is not completely obvious how it arrives. We awake in the morning with a sense that we have received a message. We may perhaps seem to hear it in the air around us. Perhaps it is only a mental impression, and we have a strong feeling that something is happening to a person near us or one with whom we have concern of some nature. Tragedies to loved ones, danger to family and children are very frequent causes of this thought transference, and it is quite frequently associated with the death of a person at a distance. I have gone over hundreds of these stories and records. They are on file in many groups and appear in many books if you want to spend the long time necessary to dig them out. But I haven't read one account in which this kind of thought transference carried with it any overt moral persuasion to do anything. At the time of the death of Lord Nelson, Lady Hamilton received at the moment of his death the clear impression of his death. She knew that he was dead. But this was not accompanied by any effort on the part of Nelson to indoctrinate her with anything, hurt her, injure her, or over-influence her. It was just the spontaneous pressure of a great desire to communicate. Now, most of your thought transference has practically no normal, vicious associations.
All right, let's get in this other video real quick.
Housewife, and I prefer to be called domestic goddess. And
Yeah.
I mean, they do.
But they focus on the ones that are important, and they focus on Flat Earth, man. They even started a Flat Earth Society. That's fake.
Well,
Flat Earth Society. Anytime you go to Google and you go Flat Earth,
okay,
they're gonna take you to flat because they don't want you to know.
Why do they not want us to know what's the big
Earth? Like, what are we really on? Based on all this NASA data.
Yeah, I don't believe
Everybody
nothing
knows
NASA
that was a
says.
hit piece. That's a hit piece.
Okay.
Alleys in the water.
Right.
Well,
Right?
some places it's higher and lower.
No, what I'm talking about, if we're in a ball, like the Pacific Ocean, imagine how big that is. That ass.
1 second, real quick.
Every every mile, there's 8 inches of curvature because it's a ball. It can't be level. The Ukraine.
No, they told us we
You
couldn't
can't
on
be critical
YouTube.
of the Ukrainian war on YouTube.
That's what they told us.
That basically,
Damn.
like YouTube, has like labels on like when you post a certain video, and like if you talk about the jab, they're gonna put a label on it, and then they're gonna send you to like, hey, the jab is good, it's safe and effective. You know, if your video has anything on 9/11, they're gonna put a label on it. Say, listen, 9/11 was done by some hijackers. It's not an inside job, right?
Right.
So basically, if whatever videos have a label on it,
Targeted.
there's truth in that video,
That's right.
right?
Some truth, yeah.
And then we talk about Flat Earth, and they got a Flat Earth label. Think about that. They got a Flat Earth.
Oh, they're trying to censor all that?
Of course.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
realize
Oh
that.
my God.
But they don't want us to know about any flat Earth
They don't want us
theories.
to know that we're in a lake.
Yeah, you were saying that. And it
They
was
don't
like-
want us to know
Lake, he
that.
said.
So
Please
what did you say
explain.
about Polaris? You said Polaris, and I loved all that.
Based on what I've seen, and I'm an idiot, so I don't know anything. But based on what I've seen, it looks like we're in a lake, and our shore is an ice wall, and the middle of the lake.
Ice wall, you mean large, surrounded by ice?
Yeah, you watch video of it. I mean, there's mass video of it. 200-foot ice wall. It's just like Game of
200
Thrones.
feet?
200 feet, all the way around. We're surrounded by an ice wall. That's what our container. That's the water's level. Because if we were on a ball, and it's 25,000 miles in circumference, right, approximately. There's a ball.
Approximately,
There's an equation that calculates the curvature, and when it comes to a ball that's 25,000 miles in circumference, supposedly, that's what they tell us. That's what NASA tells us. Then the curvature formula is 8 inches per mile squared. So that means every every mile there's 8 inches of curvature because it's a ball. It can't be level. So at a ball, like it doesn't matter how big the ball is. As soon as you take 1 foot, you should be going lower. Even though you can't tell if the ball was like 1,000,000 miles in circumference, you wouldn't be able to tell that you're going lower, because it's such a big ball. But a ball is a ball. Wherever you're at, you move 1 inch one way, technically you're going lower. It can't be flat. It's a ball. A ball is in perpetual curvature, right? So when you take that curvature formula and you apply it to, it's hard to measure curve on land because there's valleys and mountains.
What Christopher Columbus was talking about when he saw the ship just the ship come up from the horizon that he figured out it like on an
That is
orange?
the easiest. That is the easiest question to answer, and it's so.
Oh, I'm
easy.
glad I
That one's
asked
the
it
easiest
then.
one. That
Okay,
is the
what?
easiest one. But before I get to that, if we're on a ball at 25,000 miles in circumference, it's hard to measure curve on land because there's hills,
Yeah,
there's
right.
there's valleys,
Terrain
there's
change.
mountains. But in the ocean should be perfectly curved.
it's water.
Perfectly, it's water. There's not going to be valleys in the water.
Right.
Well,
right?
some places it's higher and lower.
The water. No, what I'm talking about, if we're in a ball, like the Pacific Ocean,
You don't get
imagine
out
how
of
big that is.
Roseanne,
That
I
has
used to
to
watch
be.
the show all the
There's no valleys in that, so you can measure curvature on water. So on water at 100 miles, based on the curvature formula, based on 25,000 miles in circumference, at 100 miles, there should be approximately 6,000 feet of curvature.
Approximately.
So if you're on the ocean at 100 miles, you wouldn't be able to see anything at 100 miles because there's the curve. It's a ball. You're
Right.
saying it's a ball. So we're right here.
So that's
there's
the
100
horizon.
miles right here. 100 miles. You're right here. Here's 100 miles. You are on a ball, right? So
Right.
there should be 6,000 feet of curvature.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did you see the documentary at the end where they tried to prove the curvature? I'm not trying to.
That is a hit piece. No, that's proof
Okay.
that it's round.
That's a hit
or
piece.
that it's flat. I'm sorry.
Did
It's
you
proof
see?
that it's
Hold
flat.
on,
That's
real
on
quick.
Netflix.
Did you see this documentary?
No.
On Netflix.
All right. Well, just so she knows, so they were trying to prove that the Earth is flat. So they did this laser flashlight thing that shows the curvature, and it was disproven at the end of the documentary. So they
Well,
looked-
that
So he's saying that's a hit piece.
But no, that's proof that it's flat because that's a hit piece. That's Netflix. That was
Yeah,
a hit
I-
piece. Anybody
There's
that's
some of
involved,
this if you want.
anybody that's involved in
We're getting the weed out now.
research of like true Earth, like what are we really on, based on all this NASA data.
Yeah, I don't believe
Everybody
nothing
knows
NASA
that was a
says.
hit piece. That's a
Okay.
hit piece.
Okay.
This is a regular hit piece. They're going out of their way they're putting labels on if you punch in a certain flat Earth video on YouTube, you spell it out. They're not going to send you to that. They're going to send you to the first 30 videos that they produced.
That's
they
true.
produced
No
to
shit.
debunk it.
Yeah, that's
they
right.
produced. Why are they why they're scared
Well, they
of hell.
do control they control every
scared as hell,
aspect
he
of
said.
information that gets to the people, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, they do.
But they focus on the ones that are important, and they focus on flat Earth, man. They even started a flat Earth society. That's fake.
Well-
Flat Earth society. Anytime you go to Google and you go flat Earth,
Okay,
they're
but
gonna
why?
take you to
They're
flat
controlled
because they don't want you to
Why?
know.
Why do they not want us to know what's the big
No,
threat that
nah.
we would know it's
Why?
flat? What does that
Because that's the
threaten?
truth. They don't want us to know the truth. They want us on a ball.
Truth will
Don't go
set you
anywhere. You're
free.
just gonna go in a circle. You're gonna go stay where you're at. Don't
Well,
go anywhere.
where
we
would
would
we go?
explore. We would explore. We would find that there's a lot of hidden lands.
Under the ice?
No, on the other, like
in
beyond.
Game of
Oh, on
Thrones.
the
We're
other
like
side
we're
of
like
the ice.
if we're like a lake, there's a bunch of lakes.
I get it.
Yeah, he's
There's a
saying-
bunch of
I
land.
totally
I get it.
get you. Okay.
They're hiding land. They're not telling us about everything.
Eddie, did they?
They got us in
Oh.
the center. They got us locked in the center in this lake. We're not a ball spinning through space. They think we're. Do you think you're spinning 1,000,000 miles an hour?
No, because my hair ain't even moving.
Exactly. They're telling us we're spinning 4 different ways at
This is
speeds you
awesome.
can't see. They're telling us that the Earth is spinning on its own axis at 1,000 miles an hour. That's
Yeah.
fast. And then the Earth is spinning around the sun at 60,000 miles an hour. And then the sun is spinning around the center of the Milky Way at 666,000 miles. Everything is 666.
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
Everything is 666.
Oh, I
in
knew
space.
that.
Oh, yeah, I
Isn't
knew
that, isn't
that.
that a coincidence?
No. I mean, we
And then, okay,
all know,
so
don't
they're-
we all know? Wait, I'm choking.
So they're telling us
the best
that we're
podcast ever.
spinning 1,000 miles an hour one way, 60,000 miles an hour another way, and then 600,000 miles an hour another way, and then 1,000,000. Then the whole Milky Way galaxy is spinning 1,000,000 miles an hour through the galaxy.
Yeah.
Yet we're motionless.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And did
Yeah,
they
when I moved-
did they do the test on the water?
And
You
yet
said that
they
proves it.
can't
Did they
come
do
up-
that test?
Oh,
Can
so
I
the
tell
test.
a joke? Excuse me,
Yeah,
Matt.
when you're done, let us know because I have a question.
Now I forgot it. No, it was, and they can't come up with a cigarette that cures cancer.
Good
I
point.
love that. Can
God
you imagine?
damn them.
That's a great idea.
Ain't it?
A cigarette.
Would you invest this in my new company?
I would. You know what? Because there's so many zombies out there, they would buy it.
But it would work. It'd be like, and there should
Like
be
it
one
would
we
work,
can
though.
smoke. Well, this does reverse.
That's kind of you have it in your hand already. You already invented it.
You're right, I did.
Talk about
Hey,
smoking
did you
weed.
see me? I bet you didn't, because nobody knows half the shit I've done. Have you ever gone down the Roseanne rabbit hole, my friend?
That's why I'm here. I'm here to find out what
Let's skip
happened.
ahead a little bit.
Richard.
Oh, I was going to tell you. No.
Totally right. Okay.
Yeah.
100%.
Duh.
And my mom was the other one. Here's my mom the whole time. It's all like Jews.
Talking about her multiple,
Like they
multiple
couldn't tell
personalities.
since-
Her upbringing in Utah. She couldn't tell nobody she was a Jew because everybody was Mormon apparently.
We were short, fat, and dark. And the Mormons, we
Finished.
did our
We never
DNA.
finished flat Earth.
Finished how you met Richard Pryor.
Yeah, we have 8
Oh.
things that we haven't.
How did
finished.
Well,
that
I
happen?
met him in my mind as a young child.
But you
But
actually
in
met him.
person. When
I
did you
seen
meet
him on the Ed Sullivan Show, and he went into me. His
I knew you shit yourself on Jesse Waters, but I didn't know Richard Pryor. Is that what you did? You shit yourself when you
a
met
little
Pryor?
bit. I met Salman Rushdie.
He's got that one down.
Yeah.
And he's got that character
He's
down.
like so many guys. He's like
hilarious.
perfected the guy thing.
You didn't get the.
Here was his joke on Bush. He goes, the
And I'm like,
intel.
oh my God.
I got
See,
scared
don't
too.
you-
It's over.
Don't write your own interpretation
Okay,
over
thank
it.
God.
See?
Thank God.
Based on the fact that he was doing good work. Yeah,
I
we
mean,
didn't
it's
even talk
obvious.
about
It's
Trump.
obvious that. Isn't it obvious to you that it's? I mean, they gotta get rid of Trump. Like it's obvious. The deep state as it that shows up with an AR and to the Capitol building.
No,
I'm not
nobody
gonna do
wants
that.
that.
Is devolution going on? Is it continuity of government? I don't know. Shit, that might be happening. There's some
Did you
evidence of
go
that.
to military.gov
Yeah.
and read the laws and orders?
What I've heard from him.
Military.gov.
From
Very
who?
trust. I can't say.
You're talking about who?
X-22.
Just your reality.
Absolutely.
I mean, line up your shit and stop swallowing horse shit. Stop it.
And it might not be horseshit, but at least be open to the possibility that it is horseshit. That's all you have to do. Just check
Just
in.
don't
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
don't buy into anything.
Check this out. This could be like really, on one level.
However, if you know anything about Q, which you don't, obviously.
Me or Eddie?
No, I'm talking to everyone within.
It really comes down to this. If he's like a fake shill, then I have no
No,
idea.
they already was doing that.
So this is my imagination.
And
right?
controlling the weather
What if-
and everything.
Yeah, this is the scary theory. The scary
Yeah.
theory is there's a whole nother.
Uh-oh.
It really comes
What's it
down to
talking
this. If he's like a fake shill, then all the stuff that's going on is acted.
Right.
I mean, are they really
No.
fake going after
Yeah.
him? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
you
I
think they are going fake? You think the indictments are fake? I'm just asking.
I think they didn't even bother to read them over
but
before they signed them.
Occam's
No, but
razor,
what I'm
right?
saying, but what I'm saying is,
It's just like this.
Hold on, we'll be right back. Give me a second. All right, back to the shit real quick. See what we got.
It's a script.
But
it's
he
like
is really
script.
No, but
he's really indicted
this-
by the deep state.
yeah.
He's-
So it's a question of are they truly going after him or is it fake? How do we get them to fight? The way
Facts. Vet your facts. Don't invest. Don't
That's the trick. Like
That is
how
the
do we
Then
get
we're
the
fucking
break?
FEMA
I know. I
camp.
hope.
Okay,
I hope
no,
that's
you're
me
wrong.
being. That, no,
but let's
I
do
hope
it.
I'm wrong.
You're
No, that's
just-
just a
you're
crazy
just-
theory.
no,
Crazy.
you're
This is the place to
scared.
talk theory. So talk
You
theory.
just can't go there.
It's like another level. Like
It's
boom.
at the tippy tip top of the. This is like I told you about martial arts, how I perceive it, like boxing and shit. Up here in the penthouse of battle, in the focus of the mind and will to carry out your task and complete it way, the creative thing, you know what I mean? Art and everything.
No, wait.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Well, that is the whole Polaris thing.
It's a lot of when I was talking about Polaris, I was talking about like we're in some
You said it was the
electromagnetic.
center. You said it was the center.
Yes, that's why
what I
all
love.
compasses point to the north because there's a magnetic pull.
Yeah,
And then you-
magnets. Yeah, we
Yes.
were talking about magnets.
Magnets.
I
yeah.
don't know nothing. It just seems if I had a gun to my head, what do you think's going on? I'm like, we're in some kind of electromagnetic realm. And
We are.
And those lights in the sky, they're closer than you think. So
Yeah.
the sun is not 93 million miles away.
This is flat
93
Earth.
million miles away. Look at that thing. That thing's right there. 93 million. It's
But
retarded.
yet you
they have
get
no proof of
sunburned.
it. And they have no proof of it. They
But
have no-
yeah, you get sunburned after an
yeah,
hour.
The sun is. I don't know. We're in some electromagnetic realm.
Yeah, we
You
are.
never
We're in, like,
answered.
some
did they?
big lake.
Did they do that study on the water for the flat Earth? You never
Okay,
answered
the
that.
water
Please
thing.
answer that.
Yes, at 100 feet on the 100 miles in the water, there should be at approximately 6,000 feet of curvature.
Okay.
So, but there's. How do you explain Navy ships laser targeting other ships at 100 miles an hour?
Line of sight.
It's like that proves we're on some level shit. They're not accounting for curvature. Lasers don't curve.
No,
Who
that's
gives a shit about any of
this
that?
is a good point, but did they?
Oh, I
If
know.
we're on a lake or spinning on
Yeah,
a
this is
ball,
a
you don't.
big
It doesn't
deal.
matter to
It
you.
don't
the
matter
most
to
You want the
important
truth
thing.
about everything, but not the most important thing. What? That's the most important thing.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
What are we
okay.
on? What is this?
If you're in a simulated
yeah.
planet that's not in the
Oh, we're
universe,
not-
We are.
You can't be. That's the most important thing.
But we are a simulation. Simulation.
People, they have no problem saying, "Oh, I believe in the simulation theory." You talk about we live on some kind of level plane. There's proof, scientific proof, curvature proof, math proof that we're on a plane.
They don't wanna
And
hear
it
it.
looks like we're in a fucking lake, possibly. God, and and all pictures and video of space is CGI. There's no real pictures.
You don't
There's
think
no
we
real
really
picture.
went to the moon or took
no, of
pictures?
course not. He
that was
doesn't
all
believe that.
fake.
There's no way
Okay,
he
but
believes
there's no
Super
orbiting
fake.
satellites going around.
The satellites are on balloons. They've always been on balloons. On the 50s. and
This is what I
they've always-
wanted.
No, I can
Okay.
prove it to you.
Here we go,
Really?
guys.
Okay,
I'm getting another
okay,
drink.
keep
Keep
going.
Satellites are on balloons. They've always been on balloons. Like in the
Okay.
50s, you watch old military. You could watch the video. They're like, this is what they did. They put them up on giant balloon satellites, and then they bounce. You know that was a huge military tactic. They had satellites.
Yeah, of course.
And they did that through the 50s. That's the way they did it in the 50s. But then in the 60s, they go, if you give us $300 million, we'll put one in
can put it in
space, and it's
space.
going to help telecommunications
no.
better. And they're
Okay,
going to put them in
I'm
space.
gonna tell-
We're going to launch
Do
them
you
in
want to hear
space.
the truth or just?
And they were just always on
You just
balloons.
only want to hear your
No,
own
wait. Does this
self.
mean there's
Like,
no
I-
God
I- I
though?
just-
Is
all
there no
males.
God?
It's time for me to talk, Junior.
You've been talking. I want. Wait, just
Go ahead,
let me,
go ahead.
one second though. Does that mean there's no God? If you're
I
flat
believe in
Earth,
God.
Okay, but the
Oh,
flat
good.
Earth is somebody that's God
Yes.
created, or this is man created of
We don't
simulation
know,
to
but
fuck
we
with?
know there's a good God out there.
Okay.
Because what we're finding out is like, the demons, the elite demon side,
They're real.
Damn, they're in the Satan.
100%.
They have all the knowledge. The people running this shit, they probably know what's going on. They know all. That's why we have that. You asked me about the Antarctic Treaty. You can't go to the Antarctica without a government fucking license. And if you make it, you prove you're a scientist. They put you on a little peninsula. They got a pole. You get to see the little penguins. Oh, let's go see the leopard seal. And that's it. They put you on a little thing, and then they send you back. That's how they got everybody. You can't independently travel through Antarctica. They got military all surrounding it.
How come
Isn't
John
that a bitch?
carrying them's always
Isn't that a
going up
bitch?
there?
Huh?
How come John carrying them's always is going up there?
You don't think they have VIP?
What are they doing up there while they're
Exactly. I don't know.
You
Maybe
gotta
they're
have a
just
theory.
checking out penguins.
What do you think
No,
they're
you
doing?
know what they're doing.
I don't know. Who knows what
they're
they're
gotta
going
give us a
underneath
theory.
The ice
There's
caves.
something going on.
Yeah, there's a whole
That's the shore. They're
breakaway
going to the
continent
shore.
over there.
They're
You
going to
don't
the
know
shore.
about that.
You think it's
don't know
alien
about the
base?
breakaway continent?
Yeah,
Nazis.
there was at
breakaway
least one continent
continent.
as big as the United States was found without ice on the other by Admiral Byrd.
That's correct.
He's
You
on
are
TV
correct,
talking about
sir.
it.
You are correct.
There's at
sir.
least land that doesn't
Yes.
have. So there's probably
Yes.
a bunch of land everywhere.
Tell it.
They got us contained. Oh, we're spinning through space.
What's the point of the
round?
round Earth theory? Like what is
It
what?
keeps us. It kills God. We're a
Materialistic.
speck.
Okay.
We're a speck.
Interesting.
And they had.
How does it kill
they're under-
God?
Because then it's all,
Because how could it? How could God didn't talk about no galaxy? God didn't talk about no solar system. God didn't talk about none of that shit.
Yeah.
We're spinning through space. How God created this little speck. They always say we're a little speck in nothing.
God said, "Let there be light."
And there was light.
but he's saying if
And
you
there was
once you start
light.
believing in the universe and all this stuff, you become more science.
Yeah, the more
Well, that's the
science-based you
whole
are,
com-
that pulls. The more
That
scientific you are, the less
explains
God
the
you are.
entire
Right.
universe, right?
Spinning through space. a
What's the
million
point
miles
of
an
the
hour.
round Earth theory?
Fuck.
Like what is
It
what?
keeps us. It kills God. We're a speck.
Okay.
We're a speck.
Interesting.
And they had.
How does it kill
they're
God?
under-
Because then it's all,
Because how could it? How could God didn't talk about no galaxy? God didn't talk about no solar system. God didn't talk about none of that shit.
Materialism.
Yeah.
We're spinning through space. How God created this little speck. They always say we're a little speck in nothing.
God said, "Let there be light."
And there was light.
but he's saying if you once you start believing in the universe and all this stuff, you become more science.
Yeah, the more
Well, that's the
science-based you
whole
are,
com-
that pulls. The more
That
scientific you are, the less
explains
God
the
you are.
entire
Right.
universe right there. It was
Yeah.
darkness that suddenly, you know,
The Big Bang
I don't
Theory.
think that it. Well, that's one theory, but I don't think that it just created that light just
Sound.
appeared. I think that dark first saw light. It was always there, but darkness first saw light, and that was the explosion that created everything.
Yeah, that's a hard one to break down because it happened so long ago. The Big Bang Theory, like, you know, everyone got like that. Just like, do we have any video of this explosion?
Yeah, it's always.
No, they do. NASA has
Oh,
it.
they do?
Where they
From,
go
like-
all the way back to the Eye of God. Have
Yeah,
you seen that
yeah.
picture?
Is it they like rewind the universe or something? Like you know what I mean? Through some CGI shit, and then they go, oh, and then you watch.
See,
how
you can
how
see the-
crazy is it? How
I
crazy
only
is it
watch
that
crazy
everything on
things.
space, every documentary you've ever
you're
seen
too
on
crazy,
space,
baby.
any space
I know
pictures,
what's
they're all
happening, though.
CGI.
Yeah, but
That's not
here's
real.
what you don't know.
But with the telescope, look through a telescope.
Yeah, but it's true.
They'll figure it out
The
eventually.
Hubble.
Wait.
Yeah.
So you think
Everything is
Hubble-
about the Hubble
Hubble, yeah.
telescope.
it's all bullshit?
It's all bullshit. All that
Oh,
all the
no, you're
telescope,
not gonna tell
all
me.
the
Yeah, it's
fake,
all bullshit,
all the
Daddy.
fake telescope. There's no telescopes floating in space. Those are all gigantic. You can look this up on YouTube. Sophia, look up Sophia. NASA,
sorry.
Sophia. They got a giant telescope
I saw
on a
that.
giant plane. That's where they get all
Sophia,
those pictures. They say it's
NASA.
Hubble. And I go, it's the same Sophia pictures. These are the same ones. You're claiming Hubble. They're taking the pictures off
claiming
planes.
Hubble?
Just you can
Here,
put it up. right
I'm
now.
putting up Sophia right
It's
now.
easy stuff.
NASA.gov.
No, you
Here,
don't.
here.
Sophia,
it is.
NASA, Sophia.
Yep. It's all the same. This is what?
It's the exact same
That's
stuff.
the eye I like looking at.
Isn't that a
What
isn't
is
that a
Sophia?
trip? You're
Is that
claiming,
here?
Oh, we launched a camera into space and it's taking these pictures when it's.
Well, that's how I imagine
Well,
things.
where is
See that plane?
Sophia?
You see that plane? If you go back, they showed the plane with the telescope on its side. See that right there?
Oh, okay.
No.
See that?
Yeah,
You see
right
that?
here.
That plane? You
But
don't
look
see-
what it's showing.
No, but he's
no.
okay.
This is actually real. This is the NASA website.
But that's the image it's showing, not
They
the
don't get it.
plane. The
No.
actual-
He's saying Sophia is on an airplane. That's the
the
name.
telescope.
Yeah.
They're taking the telescope.
It's the telescope
off
on
air.
the-
They
see
go
it-
high
this airplane
altitude
here, Ma?
airplanes, They got a telescope.
you
They
see
open the
this?
side, and that's where they get the pictures from. It's right. I mean, they don't even hide it. They have a
He's
Instagram.
saying
NASA
there's-
has an Instagram about
He said there's
Sophia.
no Hubble. It's just this airplane takes pictures. But what is the airplane taking a picture of? Or that's fake too.
I don't know nothing. I don't
Wait,
know
is
nothing.
the airplane real or fake?
That,
I
Sophia's
don't know
real.
What is
Sophia's
or
real. So
fake.
these are real
Sophia's real.
pictures of space.
You don't think the reptilians come from... You don't think the
those are-
hold on.
reptilians... You don't think
So
the
that-
reptilians go up there
Wait, hold
to
on.
Antarctica
Hold
to
on.
get their blood
Mom,
transplants?
please. Wait, this is real space, Eddie?
Show that.
You're saying this is real space.
I don't know what that is.
But you're saying there is actually
but-
pictures.
That was the real
Any
picture.
pictures taken from space,
Okay.
from that plane?
Yes.
Yeah, those are probably real pictures.
Okay, so space is
so
real.
let's look
So
at
maybe
the real
not- maybe-
picture.
but maybe-
Let's actually see what's right in front of our face by
No, but
looking
space
at the
is
actual
real, you're
picture.
saying, Eddie, right? I'm asking you.
Space is
You think that's bullshit?
it's not
what I'm
it's not
asking.
what NASA's telling it is. It is.
What is it?
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
But if you're
It's
in
a
the
bunch
flat
of,
Earth-
bunch of
It's
electromagnetic.
time.
I mean,
It's
I've seen
time.
stars through a telescope, and
time.
they don't look rounder. They look like electromagnetic
Time and space.
pulses, stars. Like,
Here's how crazy I was as a girl.
I got you more whiskey if you want it.
Oh,
too.
where's mine?
It's right there on the
Here,
table.
give me a little bit.
I'm just-
I haven't even finished this.
I never realized flat
want
Earth
more.
was a like a theological theory.
Oh,
like
that's
a pro
more than
God.
enough.
Oh
Thank
yeah,
you, dear.
she's got her stomach was stapled. She can
Stop
do it.
telling people that. or
Everyone
I'll
knows
talk about
that.
needing my anus restapled after giving
Holy
birth
shit.
to you.
They don't staple
and the
anuses.
hemorrhoids you caused me with your 10-pound ass.
I'm just saying you don't have a normal stomach, so you can't drink that much. I'm looking out for you. So you guys get back, but just Eddie, you have to answer me this one question: Is the flat Earth community, the people that believe in flat Earth, do they believe in God? Is it a God-like theory? I've never
not
realized
all of
that.
them.
Okay.
A big portion of them do,
Okay.
but not all of them.
Okay, you
Right.
do though.
I believe in God.
He's like,
No,
yeah,
I'm saying.
don't-
Are
you're
those
saying the
other
science
ones
is
who
fake.
don't believe in God? Is there a lot of snake
There's
worshippers amongst
there's
them?
flat earthers that are hardcore
Atheists.
Bible thumpers.
Right.
They're flat earthers that they're generally not atheists. Not a,
No.
it's a different
That
kind of
goes
mindset.
together
That's a
for
different
me.
mindset.
I think it's the same. They ought to hook up. And
Fascinating.
No, I would say
Absolutely
most flat earthers believe in God.
Okay.
And a big portion of them are super Jesus.
I thought they was.
But
Interesting.
when you're trying to introduce the information to people on the fence, and you go to
Oh,
you
they've
mention
removed
Jesus,
all.
once you hear the Jesus,
Yeah, it's over.
they don't want to hear it no more.
No, it's smart.
So it's best not even to. I think depending on the situation, of course, just stick to the facts, stick to the science, stick to the numbers. Don't you don't need to bring that in.
I'm gonna
Later,
look into
like
it,
at
Eddie.
the end. Once you convince them with the facts, then later and go, oh shit, the Bible was talking about all this shit. After you got them convinced.
Okay.
But not in the beginning. Don't bring it up.
Okay.
In my opinion.
That went a long way to explaining your labyrinthine mind.
It's fascinating. Isn't
You
this
do
why I
have a
wanted Eddie
fascinating
here?
Mind.
Yeah, so when people
got
try,
one.
dude, they got videos. Like, they'll take you to the Flat Earth Society. Like, if you look at people on the fence and they go Google Flat Earth, they take you to Flat Earth Society is
It's
a
fake.
society.
So smart.
Nobody in Flat Earth, and it's always the top one. So what it does is it brings you in and it tells you some real shit that like why you're on the fence, but then it'll throw some stupid shit like we think we live on a disc that's shooting up through the infinite space.
Right.
So then you go, it's to turn you off and go, oh my God, this is ridiculous. I don't want to listen to this shit no more. And then it turns you off from Flat Earth.
It totally
They
did for me.
strategically do that.
Yeah, that's why I don't believe in it.
It's a strategy. You put in any Flat Earth video on
to my
in the
Flat
search, any like legit, you spell it out word for word, it's gonna send you to their shit.
Yeah. And we know Google does that. We talked about it with Carrie Lake last week.
Google. Yeah, the algorithm.
Google, the algorithm determines how you think.
Why the hiding it?
That's why I don't believe in
That's what's
Flat Earth.
horrifying. They aren't even bothering to hide it.
Well, you guys have to break
But
the
I think
matrix.
I think
today on this
they're not really. I don't know, man. There's so many fucking problems going on in the world.
No,
I don't know. I understand people not looking into Flat Earth total. I'm like, we got to figure out what the fuck what's gonna happen. Fuck that level up there. Fuck that. Go. Maybe there's a governor of this lake, and every lake has a different governor, or maybe there's like a seat, like a board or whatever. But who knows how the government works above the shit that we know of?
What
who
would you
knows?
do if right now you had to follow orders from the government?
That would suck. I don't know.
We would have herd
I've had
immunity
these.
for. And I was in rooms with
These are
people.
all
The
That
level
was
you
one
needed.
Of the great
People just like-
life. And I was like, all the hell,
It's
Fucking
necessary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
No
like,
one else could do it but
Yeah.
Donald Trump.
all out.
Because
You're
they're
right.
like, damn,
Yep.
we better get rid of this guy. 'Cause Guys over here talking common sense.
you know, in his place.
Very.
You keep
Start
it
talking about
going
Donald
and
Trump
just
out there.
keep it
Drinks and smokables, each one made to deliver the
All right, she gotta do her little shout out for her advertisement. But in the meantime, in between time, I'ma holler at y'all later, man. I gotta go some other shit I gotta do, so I'ma holler, man. Peace.